day, ladies and gentlemen. Today's video is part 5 in our Deuteronomy 28 punishments in the Septuagint. Let's begin, shall we? Quote, "The Lord smite thee with insanity and blindness and astonishment of mind, and thou shalt grope at midday, as a blind man will grope in the darkness, and thou shalt not prosper in thy ways. And then thou shalt be unjustly treated and plundered continually, and they shall be no helper." Stop. Surely we have all heard or seen the heartbreaking accounts of how our ancestors lost their minds either getting on the ships, while on the ships, getting off the ships, at the slave market holding pens, on the auction blocks, and working in the fields. I tried to get an estimate number of suicide among our ancestors, but the sources are dubious and sketchy. I found many slave eyewitness accounts of their friends and loved ones taking their own lives because they couldn't take it anymore. Absolutely heartbreaking. Yet, the seed of the perpetrators think they will be whisked up to hang out with John Wayne and Elvis in White Heaven, a place they tried to exclude you from all the way up until the 1950s, mind you. They said you have no souls. I hope the atrocities of our past will never die or be forgotten in your hearts. Why? To honor them, of course, and so you can stave off your children's repeating it. I said stave off because, by the looks of things, your children are well on their way back to the cotton fields, my friends. Saying that, am I the only person to notice? Hold your weave now. This passage is talking about the civil rights movement and the subsequent reaction. That's it! You have gone too damn far, scribe, says some of you. Yeah, bro, I think you are stretching it this time, scribe, says others. But I bid thee, gentle strangers, if we use knowledge of history, wisdom of System 2 thinking, and the understanding of our current state of social affairs, you will plainly see there isn't another dispensation that fits this prophecy other than the civil rights movement and afterwards. For this theory, we will be using the tried and true process of elimination format. Oh, look how you're looking now. Look how you're looking now. You guys don't think I can pull it off, do you? Let's begin, shall we? First, let's read it again for context's sake. Quote, "The Lord smite thee with insanity and blindness and astonishment of mind, and thou shalt grope at midday, as a blind man would grope in the darkness, and thou shalt not prosper in thy ways." And then, stop! There is a semicolon after the word way, which can only mean whatever comes next is in conjunction to what we just read, right? If you are still confused on this, never fear and gird up thy loins, because the next words, and then, basically saying what comes next, should be enough to tell the reader what comes next belongs to what we just read too. Let's begin. Let's continue. Quote, "And thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, and then thou shalt be unjustly treated and plundered continually, and there shall be no helper." Example. So as you can see, what we just read was one long congruent prophecy, with being unjustly treated, plundered, with no helper, as a result of being stricken with, quote, "with insanity and blindness and astonishment of mind. And thou shalt grope at midday, as a blind man will grope in the darkness, and thou shalt not prosper in thy ways." I think the amalgamation with our Yah-given enemies was the, quote, because of thine evil devices, because thou hast forsaken me. Yah was talking about in verse 20. Plain and simple. Our lack of wisdom and understanding at that time, due to Yah making us insane, thinking we can change the very heart that had you in chains and believe with their white Jesus-loving souls, you were not even freaking human. I think the cracker coins it Stockholm Syndrome. Yah struck us with blindness, not seeing your entire precious movement was founded and financed by white business owners whose only problem with you not being able to eat next to the cracker was he wasn't getting your monies too. You don't believe me? According to Wikipedia, under Council for United Civil Rights Leadership, quote, the Council for United Civil Rights Leadership was an umbrella group formed in June 1963 to organize and regulate the civil rights movement. The council brought leaders of black civil rights organizations together with white donors in business and philanthropy. It successfully brokered. Listen to that again. It successfully brokered. Who did that? Did the civil rights movement do it? No. Did Martin Luther King do it? No. It was this organization who was the black civil rights organizations together with white donors in business and philanthropy. That umbrella group successfully brokered the August 1963 March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom with the Kennedy administration under formation. Quote, preparatory work for the council began when Stephen Currier, president of the Taconic, T-A-C-O-N-I-C Foundation, asked to meet with Martin Luther King of SCLC in February 1963. Stop! The civil rights movement was all about money, people. Nothing more, nothing less. With Martin Luther King as their pitchman. You don't believe me on that either, huh? Let's continue. Quote, with national attention on the Birmingham campaign, King became even more valuable as a high-profile fundraiser. Conflict intensified among movement leaders, particularly between King and NAACP chief Roy Wilkins. Stop! Here comes the first part of the quote, and thou shalt grope at midday, as a blind man will grope in the darkness, and thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, comes into play. I said first part because each and every one of our social ills are seeds from this freaking tree. We will get to the modern times in a minute, but check out how Mr. Charlie divided and conquered your movement, thus moving you away from the true path of economic liberty and freedom to a path where even though you are sophisticated and highly educated, the people grope and none of their ways prosper. Let's continue. Quote, historian David Garrow writes, personal law, to a number of close observers, Wilkins' anger and the growing appearance of interorganizational competition was rooted basically in the heightened financial stakes that had resulted from the Birmingham crisis. That event had elevated King to the undisputable civil rights top spot in the American public's mind. It also meant that King's SCLC, rather than the long-established NAACP, would be the chief financial beneficiary of the new interest in civil rights. Stop! King didn't get rich, but he Well, I guess you know what I mean. What? Still too soon, huh? Well, okay. As you can see, what you thought was about loving your fellow man, these things we find self-evident, and we shall overcome, was nothing more than Judas goat-colored preachers lining their own pockets with money supplied by white devils to lead their flocks toward the furnace of affliction. The infighting among colored leaders were written everywhere. I can do a short video on some of their quotes if you like. But wait! Just in case you still don't believe what you think was grassroots and from the heart of morality, was/is nothing more than a money grab for money grips, let's continue. Quote, on 19 June 1963, representatives from 96 corporations and foundations met for a fundraising breakfast at the Carlisle Hotel in Manhattan. $800,000 was raised. Donations came from the Ford Foundation, who are racist and hated Mr. Goldfinger with a passion, and the Rockefeller Foundation. No need to even say anything, but it was a trap! Believe me. Oh, you don't believe me? Check this out. Let's continue. Quote, and 93 other businesses and foundations in addition to the Taconic Foundation. Few or none of these were black owned. Stop. People, we have been tricked into believing one thing, civil rights was good and it helped us, when in fact, it's exactly opposite. It was a trick and a trap, and we are worse off now than before. But I know, I still haven't made the link between the cracker, money, power, and influence respect yet, right? You guys are a tough crowd. Let's continue. Wait, please remember, the majority of the black groups that was at the Money Changers table with King's group are not for nonviolent protest nor amalgamation. Historian Garrow continues. Check out how the Nephilim work. Personal law. Quote, at the courier-sponsored breakfast the next morning, the Taconic Foundation's president recommended that the black leadership establish the Council for the United Civil Rights Leadership, which, under Courier's auspices, would serve as clearinghouse for dividing large contributions among all the organizations. Everyone present knew of Courier's great personal wealth, as well as his remarkable ability to generate funds from other well-to-do friends. No one dissented from his plan. The arrangement could lessen the growing internal conflict before serious damage was done. And it was all but certain to provide each of the organizations with funds they otherwise would not receive. Example. So let me paint the picture for you correctly. The operative responsible used the old greed trick on money-hungry/needy people. He showed he could raise a huge amount of money, just at his behest. He waits until the next morning so you can sleep with money signs in your eyes instead of sheep. Not understanding, you were the sheep. The next morning, when it's time to talk money business, out of the freaking blue, the blonde-haired, blue-eyed devil, trigger phrase for Mr. Charlie, flips the script by recommending all of the different factions with all of their different ideas for the community, sometimes polar opposite, mind you, all go under the same umbrella to get that money. No one dissented from his plans. The power of the dark side of money was too immense. their feelings of a righteous acts betrayed them. Didn't the Godfather tell us the first person who offers to mediate with a plan is the rat? Didn't Rothschild say, give me the means to control the money, I can control the country, or something like that? Now to the truth of the matter through the scriptures, thus exposing the true Judas goats in the room and their evil devices. Here comes the process of elimination part. Question: has there been a dispensation in American history where this prophecy could have taken place other than the civil rights era and the present? I say no. Why? Because to call the most heinous crime upon humanity simply unjustly treated doesn't fit the bill. Didn't we already read where Yah, quote, said, quote, give thee up for slaughter before thine enemies and disperse to all kingdoms of the earth? Surely this has to tip the scale in your mind of simply being unjustly treated. Let me read it yet once more for you for complete clarity. Quote, the Lord smite thee with insanity and blindness and astonishment of mind, and thou shalt grope at midday as a blind man will grope in darkness, and thou shalt not prosper in thy ways. And then thou shalt be unjustly treated and plundered continually, and there shall be no helper. Example. Okay, I will start off by saying this dispensation had to be after slavery was ended. Why? Because we weren't in this type of disarray in slavery. I think the cracker call it the antebellum era, where the colors knew their place and the whites knew their place. You know, the natural order of things. No, seriously. The slaves were already broken into submission, so this doesn't fit the context of the punishment. It can't be the Reconstruction era either. Why? Because black people prospered to the point we were being elected to public office and all back then. It can't be the 20s through 40s either. Why? Wasn't that the Black Renaissance era, where we had just as much swank as the crackers? We had Black Wall Street, clubs, restaurants, hotels, stores, jobs, etc. Besides, when there's war, World War I and II, everyone prospers back home. Has anyone with an analytical eye figured out? When we were under separate but equal laws, yeah, even under Jim Crow, blacks were far and away better off than when we's be free. The lynching and such was the dirty crackers' reaction to our prosperity that matched theirs away from them. So again, I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, when in our time in America can this prophecy possibly be talking about? Are we not insane? Just look at our wayward appearance for the answer. Trying to do the same things. Protest, trying to build in Babylon. Education is the key. Yet, we continue to reach the same results. Are we not blind? Not only to white/black and mulatto Jesus, but continuing to fall for the crackers' tried and true devices. Blinded by bling bling, money and trinkets then, and continue to be blinded by the illusion of money and trinkets now. So blind, you actually think the seed who epigenetically inherit a disposition of evil genius and cruelty from their ancestors. It's genetics. It's out of their hands, mind you. Think these people will or have the capacity to give up some of their power and treat those they once thought was less than an animal, not only like a human now, but equal? Stop smoking with marijuana cigarettes, people. Didn't we just read a small snippet of an example of groping like a blind man and not truly prosper in our ways? We had all of these ideas, but without Yah taking his cup of wrath from our vile lips, it all backfired on us. That brings us to the last part. And then thou shalt be unjustly treated and plundered continually, and there shall be no helper. Are not the modern day carpetbaggers and gold fingers treating us unjustly and plundering us continuously today? Notice, if it was any other dispensation other than after 1965, the all-important and out-of-place words of unjustly treated wouldn't make sense. Why? Because we were being hanged at will before then, not just being unjustly treated or treated unjustly like we are now. Being so rich, yet so damn poor. Being so educated, yet so freaking stupid. Thank you for looking at this video, and look for the next.